It's a Thursday morning, you're 47 years old, you've given 15 loyal years to the same tax department, you know every line of the US tax code like it's your native language, and you walk in to find a pink slip on your chair that says position eliminated, offshoring to India. The same company that gave you a 10-year plaque 2 months ago just decided your $180,000 salary was too rich and some kid in Bangalore making $22,000 can do your job just fine. They even made you train your replacement for 2 weeks, smiling through the Zoom calls while Raj asked you to repeat yourself slower because the connection was bad. You pack your box, shake a few hands, and they throw you a going-away lunch with grocery store sheet cake that tastes like cardboard and regret. You think it's over. You think they won. Brother, you have no idea the nuclear hellstorm that's about to rain down on their heads. 6 months later you're sitting on your couch in sweatpants, collecting a comfortable severance and consulting for half the Fortune 500 because word got around that you're the guy who can make the IRS blink. Life's actually pretty good. Then your phone rings at 3:12 a.m. It's the CFO, voice shaking like he just saw the Grim Reaper wearing an IRS badge. We have a problem. The IRS just locked our bank accounts. $480 million in proposed adjustments. They're saying every single transfer pricing study we filed for the last 4 years is fraudulent. They're coming to the headquarters Monday with a search warrant. You let the silence hang just long enough for him to start sweating through the phone. Then you ask, calm as death, who signed off on those studies after I left? Crickets. You already know the answer. Raj and the Outsourced team copy-pasted your old work, changed the dates, and rubber-stamped it without understanding a single footnote. See, what corporate never realized is that you weren't just some spreadsheet monkey. You were the only thing standing between them and total annihilation on transfer pricing. Every year you built those studies like a fortress, cross-referencing OECD guidelines, arm's-length comparables, and case law so airtight the IRS auditors would come in, poke around for 2 weeks, and leave with nothing but coffee stains. The moment you walked out the door, the cheap replacement crew started cutting corners, recycling 5-year-old data, using public comps that were laughably wrong, and worst of all, they didn't know how to hide the bodies. The IRS didn't just find errors, they found a pattern of deliberate fraud that smelled like criminal referrals. And now the same executives who toasted your departure with that garbage sheet cake were staring at personal liability, stock price and freefall, in a federal investigation that could land half the C-suite in orange jumpsuits. The begging started immediately. First the CFO, then the general counsel, then the CEO himself, offering double your old salary, a signing bonus, full remote, stock options, whatever it took. They flew you first class to headquarters on a Sunday night like you were some tax messiah descending from the mountain. They put you in the big boardroom, 30 terrified faces staring at you while the IRS liaison sat in the corner taking notes. You opened your laptop, pulled up the old studies you still had on your personal drive, because you always keep the receipts, and spent 4 hours dismantling every mistake the offshore team made. You rewrote the entire defense narrative overnight, found precedent they'd never seen, and walked into the IRS meeting Monday morning like a surgeon with a scalpel. By Wednesday the $480 million claim was down to $19 million of legitimate adjustments, criminal referrals were off the table, and the stock stopped bleeding. They offered you the chief tax officer title, a seat on the executive committee, and a salary that made your old pay look like an allowance. You let them finish the pitch, closed your laptop, and said the sentence that still gets retold in hushed tones around the company: you outsourced my job for pennies and almost bankrupted the company in 6 months. Imagine what I could have done if you'd just treated me with respect. Then you walked out, flew home coach on your own dime, and took the competitor's offer that had been sitting in your inbox for weeks, same job, 40% more money, and a team based entirely in the US. Last anyone heard, the offshore tax center got shut down, Raj got sent back to Bangalore with a one-way ticket, And every new hire now has to sit through a mandatory training video that ends with your photo and the words, "This is why we never outsource critical thinking." The company still sends you a Christmas card every year. You use it to line the bottom of your trash can. Moral of the story, kings, never let them forget that some jobs aren't expenses, they're insurance policies. And when they cancel the policy to save a few bucks, sometimes the entire building burns down. Stay dangerous, stay valuable, and never, ever train your replacement with a smile. And the fallout didn't stop when you walked away. It kept rolling like a freight train with no brakes. 2 years later, the company still hasn't recovered. The $19 million settlement wiped out an entire quarter's profit. The stock never climbed back to pre-audit levels, and the board forced out the same CEO who signed your termination papers. They brought in some hotshot turnaround guy from GE who lasted 11 months before he quit, muttering that the place was cursed by bad karma. Every earnings call for the next 4 quarters had analysts asking the same question: how did a routine transfer pricing review turn into the biggest tax hit in your industry since Enron? The new CFO, a guy who used to report to you, had to read from a script that basically said we got greedy and fired the one person who knew what he was doing. Investors ate them alive. Meanwhile, you're sitting pretty at the competitor across town, running a tax department twice the size, pulling down low 7 figures with bonuses, and every April you get a quiet bottle of 18-year-old Macallan delivered to your door with no card, just a sticky note that says "Thank you for saving us again" from the same people who once handed you a cardboard cake. You never open the bottle. You just line them up on a shelf like trophies. The best part? Every 6 months some headhunter calls you with another offer from your old company, higher title, more zeros, desperate voicemails that sound like hostage videos. You let them go to voicemail, save every single one, and forward them to your old team with the subject line, "Still think I was replaceable?" The replies come back in seconds, laughing emojis, middle finger gifs, and one guy who just sends a photo of the new tax savior poster someone hung in the break room with your face photoshopped onto a knight slaying a dragon labeled IRS. They even tried to sue you once, claiming you took proprietary IP when you left with your own historical work papers. The judge laughed them out of court in the preliminary hearing and sanctioned their lawyers for wasting the court's time. That settlement check paid for your kid's first year of college. Now when new hires start at either company, they all hear the same urban legend on day one: there's a guy out there who got outsourced, came back like an avenging angel, saved 9 figures, and then told the entire C-suite to pound sand. They say if you mention his name in the tax department after midnight, the printers start spitting out perfect 10K footnotes on their own. Grown men cross themselves when they walk past the empty office that still has your nameplate on the door. Nobody's had the balls to take it down. And every year on the anniversary of the day they handed you that pink slip, your phone blows up at exactly 9:17 a.m. with a single text from an unknown number: "Still think Bangalore was cheaper?" You never reply. You don't have to. The market cap difference between the two companies does the talking for you. That's not just revenge, kings. That's a masterclass in what happens when you bet the house on cheap and lose the one guy holding the only umbrella in a Category 5 shitstorm. Never let them forget, some men aren't employees. Some men are the reason the lights stay on. And the legend kept growing, because karma doesn't do installments, it drops the whole balance at once. 5 years to the day after the audit from hell, your old company finally got bought out in a fire sale merger. The acquirer was a private equity shop famous for carving up carcasses. They kept exactly 38% of the staff and shuttered 3 divisions overnight. Guess whose name was on the very first slide of the non-essential personnel deck? Every single executive who signed off on your outsourcing package. The same CFO who cried on your voicemail at 3 a.m. got walked out with a cardboard box before his morning coffee got cold. The CEO who toasted to cost synergies with that sheet cake speech? Forced retirement at 54 with his pension slashed because the PE firm found cause in the IRS settlement documents. They even made him repay the golden parachute. He's pumping gas in Scottsdale now, still telling anyone who'll listen that it was one bad hire in Bangalore that ruined everything. Nobody buys his gas. Meanwhile, your new shop, the one you joined the week you told them to shove it, just went public at a $14 billion valuation. You cashed out enough restricted stock on vest day to buy the entire building your old company used to rent downtown. You didn't. Instead, you turned it into lofts and put a rooftop bar on top. Opening night, you sent engraved invites to every executive who ever signed your termination paperwork. Black tie, open bar, one night only. Exactly 7 showed up. You greeted them at the door personally, handed each a drink, and said, "Tonight the tab's on me." Tomorrow you're back to figuring out how to live on half what you used to make. Then you turned the music up and let them stand there in a bar you own, drinking liquor you paid for, staring at a view of the city they no longer run. The bartender still tells the story. One of them, the old GC who wrote the legalese that outsourced you, started crying into his whiskey and asked if you'd ever forgive him. You looked him dead in the eye and said, "Brother, I forgave you the day the IRS took your bonus. Tonight's just the interest payment." You left before last call. The next morning the bar opened to the public and the first round for every customer was served in glasses etched with a tiny logo on the bottom, a pink slip and the date they handed you yours. People think it's edgy branding. Only about 30 men on the entire continent know it's a memorial. These days you don't even do tax anymore. You sit on 3 boards, angel invest in startups run by guys who got screwed the same way you did, and every time one of those companies crushes earnings you send a bottle of that same Macallan to the old headquarters with a card that just says "still cheaper than Bangalore." The building's gone now. They tore it down for condos. But somewhere in a landfill outside the city there's a brass nameplate that used to hang on a corner office door. It's bent, dirty, and half buried under construction debris, but if you dig long enough you can still read it: Director of Tax, position eliminated. Some things even time can't outsource. That's Checkmate, kings. Not loud. Not flashy. Just permanent. Go make them remember your name when the bill comes due. And hey, race the twist nobody saw coming. The part that turned your story from corporate folklore into a straight-up cautionary tale whispered in every MBA classroom from Harvard to Hyderabad. 10 years after the pink slip that started it all, you're retired on a beach in Costa Rica, sipping pina coladas and consulting remotely for billion-dollar funds that pay you stupid money just to glance at their 10Qs. Your old company's a ghost. The PE carve-up left it as a shell brand slapped on discount store shelves. The kind of name you see on generic tax software at Walmart and wonder if anyone's still alive who remembers the glory days. But one rainy afternoon your encrypted email pings with a message from an anonymous Proton Mail account. Subject line: "We need to talk about Bangalore." Attached is a single PDF, internal board minutes from the merger that sank them, redacted like a CIA file but with enough crumbs to piece together the nightmare. Turns out, the offshore team didn't just botch your studies, they were running a side hustle, selling company data to competitors under the table, using the same sloppy servers you warned them about in your handover notes, the ones they ignored because cost savings. The IRS audit cracked the door, but the PE due diligence blew it wide open, millions in leaked IP, espionage charges floating around, and half a dozen Raj equivalents scattered to the winds with Interpol notices on their passports. You forward the file to your old CFO, the one who got the boot. He's driving Uber in Phoenix now and still sends you LinkedIn requests every 6 months. His reply comes back in under a minute: "Holy shit, they blamed me for that too? What do I do?" You type back 2 words: "Call IRS." By the end of the week, he's on a whistleblower line spilling everything for a cut of the recovery, And suddenly your old company's facing another $120 million in back taxes plus penalties that make the original hit look like pocket change. The PE firm sues the sellers sue the board, and somewhere in the middle a class action pops up from ex-employees claiming the outsourcing scam cost them their pensions. Your name shows up in the filings, not as a defendant, but as the former director whose warnings were disregarded, quoted verbatim from emails you kept like holy relics. The media picks it up. Wall Street Journal front page feature titled "The Outsourced Apocalypse: How One Man's Firing Cost a Fortune $500 billion, and Counting." They reach out for comment. You decline politely through your lawyer, who leaks just enough to make you sound like the oracle they ignored. Stock analysts start citing your last name, effect in reports, warning clients against aggressive offshoring without institutional knowledge safeguards. Business schools add a case study to their curriculum, required reading for every finance major, complete with discussion questions like, was the initial savings worth the long-term risk? Spoiler, the answer's always no. And the cherry on top? Every year on your outsourcing anniversary, a fresh batch of headhunters floods your inbox with offers from companies you've never heard of, all promising US-based teams only and lifetime job security. You forward them to your protégés, the guys you mentored back in the day who now run tax shops at FANG levels, and watch as they cherry-pick the best ones, building empires on the blueprint you left behind. One of them even named his yacht Bangalore Blues. You never went back. Never took the calls. Never even opened those Macallan bottles. They're gathering dust in a wine cellar you built with the competitor's stock windfall. But every now and then, when the sun sets over the ocean and the pina colada's just right, you pull up that old pink slip, framed now, hanging in your home office like a medal of honor, and toast to the day they thought you were expendable. Turns out, kings, the most expensive mistake a company can make isn't hiring the wrong guy, it's firing the right one. 15 years to the day after they handed you that pink slip, you're back in the States for your kid's college graduation. You're 62 now, salt and pepper beard, linen shirt, looking like the kind of man who wins at life without ever raising his voice. The ceremony ends, you're hugging your daughter, taking photos, when a guy in a cheap suit who looks like he hasn't slept in a decade walks up. You recognize him instantly, the HR director who personally escorted you out, the one who kept saying it's just business while you packed your plant into a banker's box. He's got the same nervous tick in his left eye he had back then, only now it's permanent. He waits until your family steps away, then practically whispers, "I just wanted to say, I was wrong. We were all wrong. I lost everything, house, pension, marriage. I drive a school bus now. If I'd fought harder that day, maybe," his voice cracks. He can't even finish. You look at him for a long 10 count. The same man who once stood between you and your livelihood, now standing between you and your daughter's graduation photos, begging for absolution he'll never get. You pull out your phone, open an old note titled October 17th, and turn the screen so he can see it. It's the exact email chain from the day they fired you, every cost synergy bullet point, every smug sign-off, and his own name at the bottom approving the severance package that was 40% below what you were legally owed. You let him read it. His face goes gray. Then you close the app, smile the same calm smile you gave the IRS when you walked in to save their asses, and say the only words you ever needed to say to any of them, "I kept the receipts." You kept the lesson. You shake his hand, because you're not the monster they turned into, walk back to your family, and never look back. That night, back in Costa Rica, you finally open one of those dusty Macallan bottles. You pour 2 fingers into a glass that cost more than his monthly bus driver paycheck, raise it to the moon hanging over the Pacific, and speak out loud to nobody and everybody, "Here's to the day they thought cutting me would save them money." Then you drink. The circle closes. The king stays king. The ones who swung the axe spend the rest of their lives looking over their shoulder for ghosts that never actually left. Some men don't need to scream to be heard across decades. Some men just wait, live well, and let gravity do the rest. 15 years. One pink slip. $500 million in ashes. 1,000 careers rerouted. An entire industry that still flinches when someone whispers the word outsourcing in a budget meeting. All because one man refused to vanish quietly, kept his knowledge sharp, his receipts sharper, and his conscience clean enough to sleep under the stars when the empire that betrayed him was still counting pennies in the dark. They thought they fired an employee. They actually fired the only damning witness they had. They thought they saved money. They paid compound interest for the rest of their lives. You don't need to scream, sue, or slash tires to win the long game. You just need to outlive their mistake, outwork their arrogance, and be standing tall when the last domino finally falls. The scoreboard isn't the severance check, the new title, or the yacht. The scoreboard is the look in their eyes 15 years later when they realize the man they threw away became the reason they lost everything, and the man who replaced them for pennies is still hiding from federal investigators. That's checkmate with no pieces left on the board but yours. So wherever you are right now, cubicle, corner office, or couch collecting that severance, start tonight. Back up the files. Save the emails. Document the lies. Build the fortress they'll never see until it's too late. Because one day the phone might ring at 3 a.m., or it might not. Either way, when history writes the final line, make damn sure your name is the one they can't erase. Be the ghost they create when they decide you're expendable. Be the reason they never sleep the same again. Be the living proof that some men aren't costs on a spreadsheet. Some men are the margin between profit and extinction. That's the gospel. That's the code. That's the end of this saga. Now go close your own circle. This channel was built for men who refuse to stay buried. Smash the like if you're one of them. Drop your war story below so the next king knows he's not alone. Subscribe, because the next legend is already loading. Stay wealthy. Stay dangerous. Stay free. Peace out, for good this time. Now go make them remember your name when the bill comes due.